You're now listening to All Hog Sports, covering all Arkansas Razorback sports, such as football, basketball, baseball, and much more. Now, here's your host for today's show, Sam Stimpson.
Now, normally on Wednesdays, I always release my preview for the football game on Saturday, and that would be Arkansas at Mizzou. However, that game has been postponed due to COVID-19 issues in the Razorback program. I talked about in the LSU recap and how it affected things there, so it's probably best to postpone this game so Arkansas can be at full strength whenever we play them. I'll update you guys on the podcast and all of my social medias as always, but you can find me anywhere at All Hog Sports Pod, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, wherever. I'll update you there about that game. But tonight is the first game for the basketball team. Now, the basketball team is looking pretty good this year, picked to go number 6 in the SEC. I'll talk about the preview of the team and the women's basketball team as well, and all of those other winter sports tomorrow. Right now is just the preview for the game tonight, but that is against Mississippi Valley State Delta Devils at Bud Walton Arena. First game of the season at 6:30 Central on SEC Network Plus.
Now, for the Arkansas Razorbacks.
Now, Arkansas has 2 returning scholarship players from the 2019 season. There's a lot to prove with this team, but the first guy returning is junior guard Desi Sills. He was the 6th man off of the bench last year, averaging 10.6 points per game with 3 rebounds, and he's a really good three-point shooter. I think he's going to be a guy who the Hogs are going to rely on for a 3 early on in the season as we see each skill set develop for a lot of these new guys, because if you look at the Razorback team, it is just him and Ethan Henderson from last year, like I said earlier. All these grad transfers who had to sit out a year, and then the really good freshman class. I'll get to that later. But Desi Sills was picked to go second team All-SEC, and him and Henderson, I think, are going to be able to make an impact on him because they know the system, obviously. They've had a lot of time to work out with everybody else, but I think Sills will be in the starting rotation for this game because of the amount of experience he has from last year. And at the beginning of last year, when he came off the bench, he was performing really well, but I don't think if he does bad as a starter, it should mean we should lose all hope for him, because I think there's a situation where you can put Sills on the 6th man on the bench, and he can still perform good for the Razorbacks because he may just fit the system better there. So for Desi Sills to have a good game is definitely important for the Razorbacks for this one, but it's led by transfers and the great freshman class that came in, and this is really key to deciding the ongoing starting 5 with this Razorback team, because when you have so many new players and only 2 scholarship returning guys, you don't know who's going to start in the rotation and all of that when it comes to SEC play. Now, if you look at Arkansas's non-conference schedule, it is incredibly weak. However, I think that's a good thing. We're going to be playing easier teams, so we can experiment more, find each guy's skill set for the team and for the chemistry of everything, and have everything work out in a really good way for the Razorbacks is okay by playing these weaker teams, such as the Delta Devils. And this is just one of those games where I think Arkansas fans are going to see how good Eric Musselman is at getting transfers and recruits to the University of Arkansas. But a couple guys to watch out for is transfer J.D. Notie from Jacksonville. He had a great red-white game, dropping 30 points. He had to sit out last year due to the transfer rules, and he really wasn't a guy that I think Arkansas fans knew. I didn't even know who he was. I knew Vanover transferred, and he was denied eligibility, but I think J.D. Notie may be one of the best shooters on this team, and he definitely could be a guy that will make these games a lot more exciting if he can consistently shoot that 3-ball. But Connor Vanover, the transfer from California, had to sit out a year due to the NCAA eligibility rules. But he is 7'3", and anytime you have a guy like him, whether he comes off the bench like he most likely will, or starting, he's going to make an impact at that center position because of his height. Obviously, the Razorback team struggled a ton last year due to not really a ton of height. You look at the Razorback team last year, and there's so many guys who were good athletically, but they were shorter than the average, guy that other teams would have, which hurt us in the long run for when they were trying to crash the boards, get rebounds, and really just make certain shots. I feel like if we had an extra inch or two on some guys, it's going to work out. But to have Connor Vanover on the court, a guy who's 7'3", is really good for the Razorbacks because he basically gets the ball in the middle and just puts it in the hoop because he's so tall. So that's really good for the Razorbacks. Now, a couple other guys who came in this year Justin Smith out of Indiana, he performed really well at Indiana his last season, averaging 10 points a game, 6'7" forward guy, and I think something with him is really versatile. He's a good defender, a good shooter. It's good to have a guy who can play both of those positions, but I think a lot of people are talking about Vance Jackson, and rightfully so. 11 points per game as a forward out of New Mexico. I think he may be one of the top 3 guys on this team outside of potentially Moody and then Smith. I think Jackson could be one of those guys. And I think something awesome about the Razorback team this year is how new we're going to have guys coming into the program that Arkansas fans haven't seen, but everything's going to work out good, and they're going to establish chemistry in those first few games just because I think Eric Musselman is a great recruiter, not only in basketball skill sets, but to get guys who have a love for the game, a passion for the game, integrity guys, and good teammates. I think we'll see that a lot with this Razorback team. Now, another guy is Jalen Tate out of Northern Kentucky. The guard averaged 14 points per game and was 50% from the field. He's another shooter on this team. Great transfer there. Another great add from Eric Musselman. Arkansas, though, had a lot of in-state talent in the 2020 freshman class. Very talented, ranked number 8 in the nation on 247. And a lot of guys here that will make an impact. First, I think, is Jalen Williams and Moses Moody. Jalen Williams is a forward or a center, and then Moses Moody is a guard. Moses Moody has been highly touted by NBA draft prospects to be a one-and-done and go anywhere from a late lottery pick to like an early second rounder. So lots of potential for him there. And I think he may be the leading scorer for the Razorbacks. I think he's one of the best players on this team. And I think he honestly could be in the NBA right now if the NBA didn't have that one-and-done rule where you have to sit out a year after high school. So I think for him to come to the Razorbacks and provide that level of offensive consistency is going to be great for his career going into the NBA. And I think we'll see him perform really well tonight because, in my opinion, I think he will lead the team around 30 points because obviously you're going to bench your guys and get a ton of guys in the lineup because unproven team and all that, but 2 other guys, KK Robinson and Devontae Davis, very talented players too. But this roster is absolutely stacked. I talk about all of these guys, and there's even more on this team that had to sit out last year or they were injured during camp or something like that. So to see the amount of talent on this roster is awesome because I feel like Arkansas Razorback team hasn't had this in a long time. Now, they haven't played together, so I feel like that's the reason we're not ranked in the AP Top 25 or anything. But I feel like once we get into that conference schedule, we'll start getting ranked and get that recognition after we play tougher teams, establish the starting 5, establish the chemistry with these guys. Because when you lose talented shooters like Isaiah Joe and Mason Jones, who was the co-SEC Player of the Year, Joe went to the 76ers in the draft, and then Jones signed a 2-way contract with the Rockets just a week ago. But when you lose 2 guys like that, I feel like people are not wanting to rank you and say, oh, you're super good, because you look at teams like LSU in football and that's what happens. So the AP wants to look better. They don't want to rank a team and then something happens because they lost guys. But I'm not too worried because I think Eric Musselman brought in a great class of grad transfers, brought in a great class of transfers that had to sit out last year, and an awesome freshman class. Now, for the Devils, they were projected to go 9th out of 10 teams in the Southwestern Athletic Conference. It is a premier HBCU conference, and they went 3-27 last year with first-year head coach Lindsey Hunter. And Lindsey Hunter's son is actually sophomore Caleb Hunter. He was the SWAC Freshman of the Year, 15.7 points per game, 2.9 rebounds, and 2.3 assists. And he's looking to improve on the season again, as he is the one returning player for this team. And something when I look at the roster for the Devils, it's a lot of JUCO players. So these are guys who have a ton of experience. They have played a lot of ball in junior college and things like that. So to say that they're untalented due to them being a smaller school and not ranked higher in when you look at D1 programs and all, it's not really fair because you look at guys like Caleb Hunter who performed really well from last year, got a lot of JUCO guys coming in, kind of like the Razorbacks. They're really not proven, so a lot of people aren't going to put that there for them. So I think we'll see them perform better than people would say an opponent like them should, but I don't think that they have the potential to make this game close or pull off an upset against the Razorbacks. Now, any lines for sports betting wasn't released because it's a smaller matchup, so there's no line to talk about here, but ESPN's BPI gives you Razorbacks a 99.1% chance to win this game. So it looks pretty easy for them, but the history between these two teams is really nothing. Teams have played outside, as non-conference opponents. Arkansas is 5-0, though, and they last won in the 2011 to 2012 season. And another piece of history, I guess, for the Razorbacks is the 3-point streak is alive, 1,000-plus games and counting for the Razorbacks. So I think it'll be interesting to see if they're able to hold on to that, and I believe they will. And I'm just going to give my prediction. I think Vance Jackson nails a 3 to continue that streak for the Razorbacks. So Arkansas has done really well in home openers. I think they've won like 27 straight, I believe. So I would expect them to carry on tonight.
It's time for Sam's prediction. Sam's prediction.
I got Arkansas winning 92-46. I think we'll see a clear starting five at the end of the night because this team really isn't that much proven. I know the red-white game already happened, but there's kind of hard to take away from that because you have 5 scholarship players on each team, and you really don't know everything based off of a scrimmage against each other because, they know how each player's skill set and everything like that. But I think JT Nodi will continue his streak from the red-white game and put up 10 or 15 points. I think he's a really talented guy that a lot of Razorback fans weren't expecting to hear a ton of noise around. But when you play good like he did in the red-white game, he's going to start hearing that. Going to hear some more noise tonight. But I think Moses Moody is actually going to show he's a legit SEC Freshman of the Year candidate and could potentially be a lottery pick and a one-and-done for the Razorbacks. If you look at his high school film, he was a really talented three-point shooter, and I would expect him to put up anywhere from like 20 to 30 points. But I think at the end of the night, Razorback fans are going to be feeling pretty good about the basketball team because there is a game on Saturday against North Texas, so they'll be playing then as well. Obviously, there's no football this weekend due to COVID, so on Friday, I'll be releasing a recap of this game against MVSU, and then a preview of the North Texas basketball matchup. So stay tuned for that one, but the next few weeks I'm going to be covering football and basketball and all of these fall sports wrapping up, all of the winter sports starting up. Going to be a ton of content over here at All Hog Sports, so make sure you're following all social medias and always to listen are at allhogsports.com. I'm excited for basketball season. I'm really excited to see what Eric Musselman can do and possibly even put himself as an SEC Coach of the Year if we really can shock some people. But I guess it's too early to talk about that. But, as always, woo pig!
That's all for today's episode of All Hog Sports with Sam Stimpson. Make sure to stay tuned for the next episode covering all Arkansas Razorback sports. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe and leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on social media, too. On Twitter and Instagram at All Hog Sports Pod. Like on Facebook at All Hog Sports and Arkansas Razorbacks Podcast. And on YouTube at that same name. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. Go Hogs!